How did you get scammed? Story 1. Not me, but a customer at Best Buy. A customer came in demanding to speak with a manager regarding a TV he had ordered. The manager he asked for was Tammy, and we had no managers by that name, nor pickup orders for this customer in our system. I asked for more details. The customer had responded to a Craigslist ad for an unbelievable price on a TV. The seller claimed to be a manager at our store and instructed him to make payment by purchasing gift cards for the asking price. Then send pics of the back of the gift cards to the seller. The customer did all this and then was advised the TV would be ready for pickup at our store. Needless to say, there was no TV for him. He demanded to speak to an actual manager, who kindly informed him that he was out of luck. My local Home Depot has a sign to the effect of, "You cannot pay your tax debt with Home Depot gift cards. If someone has contacted you claiming to be from the IRS and has asked you to make payments with Home Depot gift cards, please talk to an associate." My dad is in his 70s, recently diagnosed with cancer, and is fairly well respected in a fraternal organization with a bunch of other older dudes. Apparently someone hacked his email account for the fraternal organization and spammed out an email telling the entire contact list, thousands of people, that my dad needed help. And if everyone could send Amazon and iTunes gift cards to this address, it would really help out. Multiple people called him about it because they were genuinely worried about my dad, the cancer and stuff, but could not figure out why on earth my dad wanted gift cards. The kicker was that my dad never ever goes by his full first name, which is why the email was signed. So most people could tell pretty quickly it was a scam, but there were definitely a few people who wanted to help and didn't think it through all the way. Luckily, another guy was able to email the group telling them it was a scam, but I'm sure the scammer was able to get a few gift cards from it. Story 2. A Best Buy employee convinced me I needed one of their $60 HDMI cables if I wanted Xbox games and action movies to look good on my TV. This was probably 10 years ago and I didn't know much about electronics back then. I'm still pretty salty about it. Best Buy employee here, they still do this. My coworkers are indoctrined by training videos that it actually makes a difference. The only difference is the quality of sleeving. The amount of arguments I've had with managers about not upselling HDMI cables is insane. Don't get me wrong, Best Buy is a quality store and employees are usually pretty helpful, but this myth has been ingrained into the sales pitch for so long that it's blasphemy to say otherwise. On behalf of blue shirts everywhere, current or, like myself, former, I apologize. HDMI cables at Best Buy were the biggest ripoff in that store. I put nearly 6 years under the big blue, and I never once upsold anyone on those things. Buying an Xbox 360? Well, they didn't come with an HDMI cable at the time, so here's a nice cheap Dynex cable for $20. Buying a PS3? Again, cheap HDMI cables are for you. But what about this gold-plated Phoenix Feather Cord triple-studded Dynamaxed HDMI cable over in Magnolia for $750? Did I stutter? Buy this cheap crap and it'll be just as good as the overpriced crap. Plus, you'll have more money for more important things, like other video games or dinner tonight. But what if I don't want it? Then I'll just write monoprice.com on your receipt and let you do with that what you will. Story 3. In the 90s, my friend got all of these letters saying he was a part of a contest, and he just had to keep mailing letters in to enter the drawing. The wording they put in later was something like, "You've made it to the final round, and congratulations, we are now prepared to write you a check for $10,000. All he had to do was call a 1-900 number that charged like $2 a minute. It took him about 10 minutes to navigate the automated menus once they told him he was a winner. And it ended with, "And you have won," drumroll, $1. Yeah, bro, I feel you. One time my brother got this letter saying he won a mansion. He didn't even enter a contest or anything, he just won. The idiot didn't think it was suspicious at all, and I didn't have the heart to tell him that something was fishy. He was just so happy. So we have made plans for a time to meet at the address in the letter. I'm worried though, my brothers have always been a bit slow and kind of a scaredy cat, so I decided to go over a bit early and scope the place out. To my surprise, there was a mansion, and it was huge. Still skeptical, I walked up and found the front door unlocked. I go in, and no sooner does the door shut behind me when, wham, I get knocked out cold by a jerk ghost. I wake up and that prick has me trapped inside a painting. I struggle and call for help, but I can't get free and no one comes. Well, turns out I really underestimated my brother because he shows up wielding a vacuum cleaner and literally sucks up this ghost and all of his ghostly henchmen and sets me free. This really made me appreciate my bro more. I even let him have his own year as a thanks. I remember years ago my dad saying, "Watch out for those 1-900 numbers." I forget the details, but he went for some scam saying something similar, that he won something or whatever. I forget what else happened, but he eventually saw that they were trying to charge him a lot for the calls. Somehow he got it disputed or whatever. But yeah, definitely don't answer those calls. Story 4. Someone once tried to use my credit card to book an online trip. My credit card company called me and we had this conversation. The company: "Hello, Mr. My Last Name. We've noticed that the trip to Cancun you just purchased online was slightly over your limit. We've gone ahead and bumped up your limit so you won't have any issues." Me: I didn't book a trip online. Could I get more information? Note, I had purposefully kept a low limit because I knew if I had it at my disposal, I would abuse it. They had called about 5 to 10 times asking me to raise my limit. Credit card company: "There must be some mistake. Are you sure you didn't book this trip?" Me: "Yes, I'm sure." Credit card company: "In that case, would you like to open a fraud investigation into the purchase?" Me: "Yes, please." Credit card company: "Parts of the conversation I forget. Well, okay, we apologize. Is there anything else we can do for you today?" Me: "Yes, I would like to cancel my credit card. Instead of raising a red flag at a purchase over my limit and calling me to inquire about it, my credit card company automatically bumped up my limit without my consent and called me to tell me the good news. This happened to me too. I got a call from my credit card company saying that someone had booked something like an $8,000 first-class ticket. They asked me to report it and confirm some personal details or I'd get stuck paying the full bill. I got worried this might be a scam. I'd read that scammers try to scare you into a state of panic, so it short-circuits critical thinking and you just blurt out sensitive information. I thanked the caller for letting me know and hung up on them. Then I went online, went to my credit card company's website and found their fraud hotline. I called and told them I just received a call about a fraudulent purchase made on my credit card, but that I was worried that the call had been a scam too. The operator checked my file and said there was a record of a recent contact made with me, but the cardholder had made no final decision on handling the issue. So the first call had been legit after all. Still, I think it's best to hang up, look up your bank or credit card company's real phone number, and call the company yourself. The operator reviewed the most recent charges on my credit card. Some were mine, some were not. She said, "Okay, we've established that this credit card has been compromised. We'll close this account and ship you a new credit card." And that's what happened. The purchase got flagged because it happened outside my registered billing address and I had not reported going on any trips. It's a good idea to notify your bank, debit card, and credit card companies that you're going on a trip, where you're going, how long, dates you depart and return. Don't forget to include places where you're stopping over or transferring planes, in case you need to make an emergency ATM withdrawal at a transfer airport, like if you get stranded overnight if a flight is canceled or overbooked. Depending on the company, you can fill out a travel notification form in your online account or make a phone call to the company. A British guy I met at a hostel in Vietnam didn't notify his bank where he was going traveling, so when he tried to make a withdrawal from an ATM in Vietnam, it was flagged as suspicious and his account was frozen. He had to call up his bank, prove his identity, and deal with the bank rep to regain access to his account. Getting back on track, that incident with the plane ticket actually spurred my interest in reading about fraud. This was the best book I've read so far on credit card identity theft. It's nonfiction. It uses the case of one hacker as a window into covering the whole illegal identity theft industry. Kingpin: How One Hacker Took Over the Billion-Dollar Cybercrime Underground by Kevin Poulsen. See, and my bank turned my debit card off because I made purchases at the same 2 stores 2 days in a row. I went to both the grocery store and the drugstore 2 days in a row because I forgot something at both places, and my bank apparently thought that was weird, so they turned my card off. When I tried to use my card somewhere else, it wouldn't work, and my bank was like, "Oh, that was you?" But when someone made a fraudulent charge for a phone bill in Turkey, I live in the US, that was apparently fine. Thanks, Wells Fargo. Story 5. A short story from my childhood. Someone tried to steal my working NES. Late 80s, I was about 9 or something, had a friend call me up and invited me to his house so that he could clean my NES. Thought it was strange, but he was very insistent and didn't want to argue. Brought it over and he started cleaning the NES. Asked me to get something from the kitchen, a butter knife I think. I went, found it after a few seconds of searching, and brought it back. He said he was finished, left the NES on top of his TV and left the room to get something. My NES looked very different. Stared at it a bit. It was missing a crack that had always been there. Looked on the floor where his NES was. It had a crack. He tried the old switcheroo. I tensed up and didn't want to argue with the kid. Confrontation wasn't my strong point. I just switched them back as quickly as I could. He was gone for a while. And actually, I had a lot of time. After he came back, I told him I had to go, thanked him for cleaning, and went home. After about 30 minutes, he called my house again. He asked me which NES did I take home. I told him I took mine. He asked again, yeah, but did you take the one on top of the TV or the one on the floor? I just told him again I took mine. He sounded defeated as he said, all right, bye. My cousin tricked my 4-year-old brother into trading his Game Boy Advance for a Game Boy Color. He fell for it because he had never seen a GBC before, and he was 4 years old. I tried to secretly take the GBA back, and somehow the GBC went missing. So my mom gave them my sister's GBA because the cousin was being a pouty asshole. To this day, my cousin insists it was a fair trade, and I never forgave them for that. How low do you have to be to deceive a child like that? Someone did steal my NES. Granted, it wasn't really a scam. I was 18 at the time, and one of my brother's so-called friends just lifted it in his backpack while my parents were letting him stay at our house because his parents kicked him out. We didn't play it much anymore, and didn't end up opening the drawer until months later after he'd long since been asked to leave for other reasons. Story 6. Yeah, I was on vacation and didn't have my phone on. The scammers called my house and my sister was house-sitting for my wife and me. They told her I was going to be tried for an undisclosed criminal charge if I didn't pay them something like $900 for the case to be dismissed, or I would be arrested or served the next day. She tried calling me and I didn't answer because I was on vacation. I left her one of my bank cards so that she could buy food and stuff since she was doing me a favor. She paid them with it as she thought it was real, and I am not a saint. So it was believable at the time, and this was a while ago before these scammer tactics were well known. I was so mad as I noticed the charge when I checked my online banking while still away. The worst thing is now I guess I'm on a list of people who have fallen for this and they call me all the time. I got one of these companies calling me all the time asking for the name of the guy who must have had the number before me. They called several times in one day and I lost my temper. I called the woman a C word and heard her gasp and then stammer. And then a guy got on the phone and started yelling at me. So I called him a C word and told him to stop calling me. They called back a minute later and I heard my voice echo. I told them I knew they were recording me. The echo was a dead giveaway and I didn't care, but if they called again I would file a lawsuit. No one ever called me to tell me they were the sheriff's department and to give them money ever again. My dad in Australia got told the FBI would arrest him for being rude to the scammer lady. They even called back a minute later pretending to be some kind of authority to inform him he had been reported. Yet for some reason they still call at least 5 times a day with some new sales pitch, scam or whatever. The only reason my parents still use the landline is an elderly aunt who uses that number, so they answer every call in case it's her and she needs help. Story 7. Yes, so I work in a daycare over the summer and I ordered this hair wax online that changed the color of your hair for the day. And I use the hair wax every day. I was like, this would be so cool for Color Week, and paid $53.92 for all 5 colors they offered. The next morning I woke up to my whole bank account being drained. Luckily I called my bank and they were able to fix it and send me a new card, but that is not where the story ends because I actually got the product, and after using it once my hair started to fall out. So yay, I just shaved my head that summer. Story 8. Younger guy in a shirt and tie next to me at the gas station. He asked me for a few bucks for gas as he was on his way to a job interview. Said he'd been unemployed for a few months and this was sort of a dream job opportunity. I ended up filling his entire tank and wished him luck on the interview. I saw him there twice a week for the next 3 months, always in a shirt and tie and always talking to other patrons. He eventually tried to scam me again a few months later and I reminded him that he had already got me on that line and asked him if he had any more. He said he could tell me about his dying grandmother that he was trying to go see on the other side of town, or about how he left his wallet at his office because he rushed out when his daughter's school called and told him he needed to pick her up because she was sick or throwing up everywhere. Then he paused and said, "Sorry man," and got in his car and drove away. Never saw him again, but I assume he just moved to the next gas station down the street. I did a similar thing to an older lady who used to give a spiel on my street. I live near a hospital, so it's usually something related to a sick loved one. In this case, the first time she was picking up her daughter after her husband had died in a terrible car accident, and then a week later she was picking up her husband who had broken his leg. I told her congratulations on getting remarried so fast. She looked confused for a moment, and then we had a good laugh together. Neither she nor the other regulars ever bothered me for money again, though she'd say hi if I walked by. We have a lot of homeless people who work the corners where I'm employed. Every now and then, one of them tries the gas or bus ticket story on me, and I politely let them know I can see them every day from where I work, and that I can also see them gather up when they wait for their dealer to arrive. All I ask is that they not lie to me. Most of them just treat me as a neighbor after that, and not a mark. We have friendly exchanges, and the only thing they'll ask for is a smoke. I get to know them so well I notice when they aren't there, and ask the others about them. One guy that disappeared actually came back into my store just to let me know that he'd gotten a job, been living in a hotel, and was going to sign a lease for an apartment later that day. I was stoked for him. I don't see too many that make it off the streets that way. Something similar happened to my family once when a guy came up and started into some story about needing money to get somewhere to see family, and my dad just snapped. My dad has always been the quiet type, but apparently he'd given that guy some money the week before and he was not having it. My dad retold the story the guy had given him the week before and told him to get the hell away from his family, and that guy scurried off real quick. Story 9. Not that much of a scam, but still, when I was an 18-year-old college student about to hop on the train home after classes, I was approached by a nice woman with her kid in a stroller. She told me her wallet had been stolen and she needed to buy a ticket home for her and her kid, so she was trying to gather enough money. Typical excuse, but I totally bought it at the time and gave her money for one of the tickets. I wasn't able to give more at the time because I had no more money on me, so I even felt a little bad, until I saw her at the same spot the next day, beating other travelers the same story. It's for this exact reason that I do not give homeless people or beggars any money. In my town, there is a 90% chance they are playing you for a sucker. Guy at the Taco Bell needs to feed his kids. Please buy me a taco or 10. He's there every single day at lunch hour. Another guy is at the gas station every day for a few hours harassing customers. Despite my repeated contact with their corporate number, nothing has been done. Every one of the local Walmarts has the same 5 people outside begging. This happened to me as well. I was waiting at the bus stop when this lady asked me if I had some chance to help her pay for a ticket. I had a transit card, so I didn't have any change, and said sorry. Well, the bus arrives 5 minutes later, and she gets on the bus with me and puts enough change in the machine for a ticket to print. Like, really? You weren't even smart enough to take the next bus? Or just no shame? Story 10. Got white fan scammed when I was 18 out in front of a Best Buy. A guy or two show up out front of a store like Best Buy with stereo equipment, TV speakers, projectors, etc. that in reality aren't worth more than the packaging. They proceed to tell you that they already deliver everything to hit their quota and they have X amount left over, and if they bring them back to the warehouse they will lose out on just selling them because someone else will. They follow this up with stock sheets and magazines showing the retail price of said projector/speakers at some outrageous price like $2,000, and say you can take them for anywhere between $1,000 and $200, depending on how far you can get them down. Then you get home and figure out they either don't work or are the worst quality products ever made. Stupid me lost $350. This was back in 2008. This scam still happens today, so beware. I almost got caught in this scam, but didn't have any cash. I told a friend about this great deal on speakers, and then he explained the scam to me. A few years ago, a van pulled up, and the conversation went like this. Scammer: hey, can I ask you a question? Me: let me guess, do I want to buy speakers? The scammer: no, I need directions. Me: okay, sure. Scammer: I need directions on how to get these speakers into your trunk. We laughed and he drove away. Story 11. Was looking for a job and got a call for an interview and went in, and it was some sort of MLM for like vitamin juice or something. I was sitting in the front and was polite, so I sat through the video and then started to walk out, and that's when they started being super pissy. I said I don't spend a lot of money without talking it over with my wife, and the lady said, well, I guess we can't do anything if you're not the man of the house and your wife wears the pants. Don't feel bad, I got scammed by Primerica. It's basically a financial services MLM, like if the Rainbow Vacuum guy could sell you life insurance and mutual funds. I had just moved with my husband out of state and was looking for a job. Someone gave them our number and they said that they were interviewing people. I went to the interview, which wound up being a room of 20 others, and they asked all of us for contact info for friends and family. Since I didn't know anyone, I had a great excuse. I thought something was weird then, but I soon realized that this wasn't a real job. The office was obviously one they had been renting for a couple of months and was so sad looking. I was fresh out of college and so embarrassed until a very savvy friend of mine said she'd been taken too. No one even tried to stop me when I walked out of the Cutco meeting. I was a broke college kid and they spammed those posters in every classroom until I finally got curious enough to call. They set up an interview, which was really just their sales pitch. The minute they started talking about buying your kit, I was done. Jobs don't make you pay to work there. Story 12. Almost. Several times. The scariest one was when I was on my husband's laptop, which was a quite fancy and expensive that he had gotten from his dad, so I was worried that anything could happen to it if I used it. This stupid pop-up came up that said I had to call Microsoft tech support because my laptop was compromised. There was a phone number on the screen. I called immediately. They were being vague on the phone and my anxiety was already heightened by the thought that something might be wrong, so I was feeling pretty numb. I was about to give them access to the computer to help fix the problem when my good senses kicked in and I realized it was a scam. I told the guy that I was going to hang up and that I'd talk to my husband before having him fix the computer, and I could almost hear him shrug when he said, "Okay, bye then." So obvious that it was a scam in hindsight. One thing I've learned about avoiding scams is you never call a phone number that is provided to you. If your bank, the Social Security Administration, the police, or Microsoft tech support provide you with a number to call them on, look up the number yourself. Also, don't give any information to anyone who calls you. If they ask you to verify your date of birth or credit card number or any information whatsoever, tell them you need to call them back and then hang up and call the main line you researched and get transferred. I've been following these rules for years, and it's a bit of an inconvenience when it's a legitimate call, but it saved me from countless scams. I work IT for an MSP. We are an IT company that does IT for a number of companies. Our clients have a main point of contact who are typically somewhat tech savvy. One day, I got a call from one of our contacts. Her tone of voice made it clear she was having a bad day. The president of her company had gotten the Microsoft pop-up and didn't ever think that maybe he should just call us instead. He got the scammer connected, then had to leave for the evening, so he gave the scammer his credentials, told the scammer he was leaving, and advised them to stay connected as long as they needed to clean up his PC. My elderly mom fell for this, gave them remote access and her checking account/routing number. Luckily, I was literally 5 minutes away on my visit when this happened, so I unplugged the computer as soon as I got in. Immediately the phone rang and they asked Mom to turn the computer back on because they weren't finished fixing it yet. I grabbed the phone from her, told them to F off. I didn't even try to fix the computer, just bought my mom a new one and trashed the old one. The next day, I got a call that her power was going to be turned off for non-payment. I pay all her bills, so I knew that was BS. I kept them on the phone for a while, acting panicked. And when they started down the path of, "You need to buy these specific gift cards to pay the bill," I got bored and gave them the address of the local police department to meet me. Screw people who prey on the elderly. My mom's on Social Security. She would never recover from that. Story 13. The scam that almost got me is actually brilliant. I was selling a car on Craigslist and got a call from this guy who seemed super interested. He followed up by text, asking if it had a clean history. Next text, he sent me a link to what appeared to be an alternative to Carfax, asking me to get a history report for $30 before he drove out. I was literally putting in my credit card info before I paused to think the website might be fake. Turns out it was only registered with ICANN that day. Totally fake. Had the same thing recently. Kept telling me that his lender wouldn't give him a loan without the report. I called his BS on this one, then he went on to say his mechanic wouldn't come to look at it without the report. So I finally told him, "You buy the report. Bring it with you for the test drive. And if you change your mind after the test drive, I'll pay him back for the report." Never heard from him again. Guess it never really occurred to me that the car report website they were trying to get me to go to was bogus. My initial thought was, they get a kickback for every report they can get someone to buy, but the bogus website for collecting credit card info makes way more sense. Story 14. Almost, but I caught it. Me and my ex, then girlfriend, were looking for a new apartment as our lease was coming up. There was a post on Craigslist and the place was exactly what we had been looking for and the right amount. The landlord was a couple from the area, but were on a mission trip out in Malaysia working with sick kids, and that they weren't able to get us in for a showing, but we could drive past the house and get a look at it. Within the next few hours of contact with them, they got really pushy and were pretty much demanding we make the decision and send them a $150 deposit to hold the apartment for us. My ex was the one doing the communicating since I was at work, and when she was telling me, all of these red flags started going up as soon as they were trying to get money out of us. I told my ex that it was most likely a scam. If they weren't going to allow us to walk through the apartment and were trying to get a deposit out of us, sight unseen, she assured me that it wasn't a scam and gave me all of their info so I could send the money. They wanted a Western Union money order sent to some place in Nigeria. I burst out laughing and told her that it was definitely a scam. We got into a big argument, and I had to go down the list of the things that I saw wrong with the scenario. 1. Not letting us see the apartment before signing a lease. 2. Making us send a deposit without letting us see the apartment. 3. Sending a wire transfer to Nigeria. 4. They are doing mission work in Malaysia but want their money transferred to another country. My ex went quiet after that. I ran into one of these too. I had no idea it was a scam until he demanded payment in Western Union only and refused PayPal or any other kind of payment because he was disabled and living with family on the other side of the country, so I couldn't see the house. Super sketchy. College town too, so he probably got quite a few bites with the cheap rent. Story 15. No, but I have accidentally scammed a troll. I was playing Rocket League with a couple of friends and I was trying to trade some items with people on the community page. Anyway, I got a reply from this dude and I invited him to a party and the game. We entered a trade and I put in my stuff I wanted to trade, and he was showing me stuff that he could give me for my items, and he kept accepting the trade and canceling it like an asshole. But after about 5 times of this, he waited too long to cancel the trade. I got pretty much everything in his inventory. For those of you wondering how much it was, about 4 heat waves in in-game currency, which is a lot, or like $150 worth of items if I chose to sell them. Story 16. He knocked at my door and asked for Matthew. There's no Matthew here. Oh, is he the one living downstairs? I was supposed to sell him some smokes. I actually don't know. You're a smoker too. Would you like to try one? I got this amazing deal. Why not? He was really convincing, and after a little while I ended up going to cash out like $200 while he was going to look if Matthew was downstairs. He then came back and brought me to his friend's house, knocked on the front door, no answer. Okay, I'll pass by the back door, give me the money and I'll be back in 5 minutes. Obviously that never happened. A week later I saw an article about a guy who died after falling over a balcony near my house. He was scamming people with cigarettes and got into a fight. Story 17. The worst one was probably when I was desperately applying for jobs after graduating. Hadn't found a job for months in the finance sector and just applied to be an admin assistant at a small local exchange. Looked up their website and everything looked legit. The hiring manager spoke fairly fluent English. They said they were interested in hiring me for a position that leveraged more of my education. I was stoked, almost 1.5 times the pay, and the workload was much more my style. They wanted some identifying information like my driver's license and passport. Didn't think too much about it. Scanned it off and sent it to them. They told me everything looked good and they wanted me to do a phone interview. I asked them why not in person and they told me I wasn't at that stage yet. For some reason, I felt a bit suspicious. So I looked at the address on their letterhead, which was a legit business park in my area. Called them and the phone lines were dead. Called the building owner and they told me that the property was vacant and had been for almost a year now. At this point, I knew identity theft would be possible, so I just went into a full-blown panic getting everything exchanged. Learned a valuable lesson that day. Didn't lose anything, but damn if my personal information is floating around somewhere. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you don't mind sharing with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.